Every New Year's Day, millions of people watch in awe as an explosion of color and creativity rolls through Pasadena, California. This is a celebration unlike any other, the Rose Parade. More than a century-old tradition of artistry, engineering, and flowers. But behind the beauty, months of teamwork, imagination, and thousands of blossoms. This is the story of how Rose Parade floats come to life. It all begins with an idea. As early as February, 11 months before the parade, float builders submit concepts for the next year's parade. These can come from cities, companies, schools, and nonprofits. Every year has a theme, and the float's design must reflect it, using only natural materials on every visible surface. That means no paint, no plastic, just flowers, seeds, bark, and plant matter.
What makes AES a unique float company is that we do incorporate modern design and 3D design into our float renderings. So we start with a 2D render. We can go from there into a 3D design where we utilize 3D sculpting as well as architectural design. It gives us the opportunity to lay in chassis to make sure we have proper clearances for motors, for drivers, as well as it gives us a proper shot, actually how it will look on the street and from aerial views. From here we can actually take these pieces and send them to our 3D printing department, or we can send it also to our KUKA robotic arm. I will actually take these 3D models that I've done in ZBrush and then be able to divide them up and print the proper pieces in the different departments.
You're in the middle of character heaven. La Cañada has always thought that a float without animation is boring. Even from the first float back in 1979 parade, every float has been animated. And they've been simple, they've been complex. What they have to do is they have to be designed not only so that they can be screened and decorated, but so that they can move and act out the story of the float. There are now younger and more creative people involved, including some of the high school students that are trying to implement a robotic arm on this float.
What I hope my clients take out of this parade is the emotional experience. I want to hit an emotional chord. I want tears in your eyes when you watch your float come by. I want our clients to take as much pride in their floats as we do in building their floats. We establish a relationship with a client. We get to know the client gets to know us. It is so important for the design process to be emotionally connected to the client and to the float.
Every float starts with a chassis, a motorized base that can be up to 55 feet long and 18 feet wide. They're usually built on trailer beds, many of which are reused from past years. Welders and fabricators build a steel skeleton, adding layers for animation and movement. Some floats even have hydraulic systems to raise wings, spin characters, or shoot confetti. Each float is also designed with a hidden driver and observer, sometimes using cameras or tiny windows to navigate from inside.
Welcome to Cal Poly Rose Float. We're the presidents from each campus, and together we're here to show you all the welding that we do at Cal Poly Rose Float. Everything that we do with the float is done completely by students.
We do a lot of structural welding, so when we're looking at mechanisms or the metal that's actually making everything move within our floats, that falls under our construction department. They're building all of the big trusses you see behind us and everything that's really supporting the weight of our float. It's like tens of tons when we have a float done, so we have to really calculate and make sure all the steel going on our float can support the weight of all of our elements, as well as all of our people who are climbing the float to work on it every weekend. Here in the float building business, we actually invent tools sometimes that help us out. This year the float has a lot of really exciting mechanisms and elements on it, so our team of animal engineers on our float are doing a lot of actions to work on restoring our robot.
So a lot of what we're doing is to bring the story to life. One of our big movements is our hand bird on the arm of the robot. So the robot is helping the bird take flight, so that will move up and the bird will flap its wings. And the most exciting thing is that all of this is done by students who are just learning right now. People come in without experience in these types of fields, and we teach them right here on how to do everything.
One of the most exciting aspects of the Tournament of Roses float is the animation. Behind me, the Go Bowling float, for example, has bowling pins that are all animated. They spin, they pop, they move. There's strobe lights and different effects on the float, and all of that's planned through the 3D modeling process and the float rendering to figure out what is the natural aspect and what is exciting for the crowd and TV to be able to see. And you know, there's a lot of engineering and a lot of work that goes into getting floats to collapse under 16 feet to be transported and go under the freeway bridge that the floats actually have to go under at one part of the parade. At the end of the day, it's the ooh and the ahs and the excitement from everybody seeing the float under its animation, its flowers, and finished product that brings everything to life, and it offers a memorable experience.
So today we are talking a little bit about how we plan all of the florals for our float over the year. We start in January kind of with our concept. Once we're given that, we look through the colors and the textures that we really want in Deco and for the entire float. And then actually from there we start deciding how much of that we want to be California grown, which we try to do as much as we possibly can. We try to stick with the colors and the tones of what our rendering has. Of course, nature is a little bit different than what you would see on a computer. So we do our best to match those colors through a lot of testing. As you can see, we have a lot of tests that we do throughout the entire year in order to decide where our colors and our textures are coming from in nature. We work with a lot of different organizations, farmers, growers around the world. Some of them come from Peru, some of them come from Hawaii. Some of our florals come from just up near San Luis Obispo, but we try to reach out to those that are more local to us. We do a lot of calculations by taking what is like a 3D model of our float and deciding how much of that square footage is going to be fresh florals. We take those numbers, we mess with them a little bit by finding out how big each of these blooms are, how many it takes in a square foot, and we decide what our pattern is going to be throughout the entire float through colors and textures and types.
As a floral director for our company, I decide on what's going on each one of our floats, whether it be dry or fresh material. We put a lot of heart and soul into this. We don't leave anything left unturned. We just finish everything we start out here.
The week before the parade, known as Deco Week, is a flurry of nonstop activity. Thousands of volunteers of all ages gather in massive warehouses, applying flowers, beans, and greenery one by one. They work in long shifts, sometimes 12 hours a day, racing against the clock. Judging takes place over 2 days prior to the parade. Judges inspect each float for creativity, floral design, animation, and interpretation of the theme. There are 24 trophies awarded, with the Sweepstakes Award considered to be the top prize, honoring the most beautiful entry encompassing float design, floral, presentation, and entertainment.
Creating every design, we keep in mind that we have several awards that we aim for. Sometimes the client has a vision that we take on, and we want to make sure we aim for the right award and give the client the best possible outcome with the final design. You know, for America 250, for example, which you happened to see earlier with the large eagles, we are aiming for the top trophy, and we are excited, hoping that it's a huge possibility, and we're doing everything we can to give you something different, spectacular, and worthy of that trophy.
At last, it's January 1st. The sun rises, crowds line Orange Grove and Colorado Boulevard, and the Rose Parade begins. The floats make their way to the start at Green Street, each one telling a story powered by passion, pedals, and people.
January 1st, 8 a.m. is parade day, and we've worked all night that night getting to the parade, getting the floats up, getting them overhyped, getting them prepped. That is probably one of the most exciting moments for anybody, to see your float come alive and see it in the parade and see the crowd and see the reaction. It is gratifying and everybody is excited, and you go home and you do it all over next year.
On New Year's Eve, after judging and before the float pulls out, is the most exciting time you can experience, because we have a whole bunch of community members that follow the float down as we start out on convoy. You get into formation area and you're with 30, 40 other floats, and you start to see what everybody else has created. Every person who works on this float has an award in mind when the float leaves. The crew babysit it all night. That is exciting because the press come by and they talk to you and everything. But the whole idea is when you get in the float as a driver or as an observer or as a crew member, you have no idea what's going on outside of you until you park the float at Float Fest.
You know, Parade Day is one of the most beautiful days of the year for me, and the reason for that is I am designing, creating work that puts smiles on so many people's faces, and it just in itself is a huge reward. To watch this beautiful floats come down the boulevard and knowing that my crew and I are a big part of it is just amazing. And it all pays off on that one particular day, and we're just really glad to be a part of this magical event, and Philip is a huge part of it as well.
What is so awesome to see is when our designers, our florists, our volunteers that have spent so many different days and hours and just heart and soul in this project come to life, and watch other people's reaction to their work is the most rewarding of all.
Building a Rose Parade float takes months of planning, thousands of hands, and a love of beauty. It's where engineering meets art and community meets tradition. So the next time you watch a float glide by, remember, behind every pedal is a person who made it bloom.